perhaps like the new era has actually been ushered in here of men's tennis, and the face of it appears to be Carlos Alcaraz. Joining us right now to talk all things French Open, all things about to happen over in Paris at Roland-Garros, is actually on his way there. We appreciate him taking a few minutes out of his schedule to join us here on the show. And also love this, absolutely gigantic fan of our New York Knicks. Bill Zimmerman, our executive producer, sent me a screenshot of a text that Patrick McEnroe sent him earlier that just said, "Go New York, go New York, go." And in that moment, I felt a strong kinship with my man Patrick McEnroe, who joins us now. He'll be covering the French Open for our friends at Turner Sports. Patrick, we sincerely appreciate the time. Go Knicks, man. Thank you so much for joining us.
Go New York, go New York, go. Let's go, baby. Fired up. The only bummer about going over to Paris right now, and excuse the background noise if you hear some, I'm here at beautiful Newark Airport about to get on the United flight over to Paris, if you hear the background noise. But I will not be able to see the Knicks game tonight because I'll be on the plane. But very excited about this year's they don't call it the French Open, by the way. They call it Roland-Garros. So I'm excited for the tournament. As you said, Turner for the first time covering a big-time tennis tournament. So I'm happy to be part of that team. Of course, I've been with ESPN for almost 30 years now covering most of the majors. But I think it'll be fun to see what Turner brings to the table. I think they want to do it right. So it's going to be fun. I'll be hosting a show sort of similar to what they do in NFL, like they call the Red Zone show, on True TV during the first week, especially of the tournament. Yeah, we'll be bouncing around to all the outer courts. So looking forward to it. But as you said, and rightly so, well, you were right in one sense. You were wrong in another sense. You were right about the fact that Alcaraz is the favorite for the French Open, but he's not the best player in the world overall. That's Jannik Sinner, who's coming back off of that 3-month suspension. Sinner is far and away number one in the rankings based on his consistency and his dominance on hard courts, which he's done the last year, winning the U.S. Open, winning the Australian Open. But on the clay, the slippery stuff, Alcaraz has the slight advantage and is a slight favorite over Sinner to win the title on the men's side.
All right, just a couple things, and then I want full analysis on the men's side here. Number one, the show that you're going to be hosting, that's like a bettor's dream. Like tennis red zone with all the matches going on. So I get really excited hearing that. I can't wait to tune in. And I have to ask you this because I'm in Staten Island. I live 20 minutes away from Newark Airport, which has been a disaster recently. My mother-in-law trying to fly to Florida, and her flight got delayed 9 times. So given everything going on there, how are you feeling right now about this flight taking off on time? Just in 15 seconds, and then we'll talk some tennis.
Well, I just, I'm a big United guy, so obviously I know what's been going on. But because it's an overseas flight, I decided to take my chances because most of the flights that are getting delayed, and I've been on a few of those, are domestic flights. So I'm cautiously optimistic. The flight came in from Barcelona a few hours ago, so the plane's here, and I am hoping to arrive safe and sound at about 1 a.m. New York time, which will be 7 a.m. Paris time tomorrow morning.
I'm a United guy too. Patrick, you're a celebrity. You got to throw your weight around. We need a United lounge in the Newark airport. They got a Delta lounge. We got no United lounge. Anyway, let's talk some tennis here. So Sinner, best player in the world, but Alcaraz a little better on clay. And that's, as you said, Patrick, that's reflected in the odds board, right? Alcaraz is the favorite to win the men's side, plus 125. Sinner at plus 180. Djokovic and Zverev both at 12. And again, just to reiterate, and I'm sure it's warranted, it's just strange to see Novak Djokovic and double digits next to his name. So handicap the men's side, if you'd be so kind, Patrick, and kind of how you see it playing out at Roland-Garros.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's very strange. Djokovic, of course, has won the most majors of any player in men's tennis history. But he struggled this year. He got injured during that quarterfinal against Zverev at the Australian Open. And he hasn't been really himself since. He actually just won a match today in Geneva. He's playing a small tournament this week in Geneva just to try to get a couple of matches under his belt. He'd lost, I think, 4 of his last 5 matches before that one. So, but here's the thing. If he wins the first couple rounds at Roland-Garros comfortably, his odds will go down considerably. So if you're thinking of taking a flyer, it's not a bad flyer to take. I've got him at plus 1,200. I've got Zverev at plus 900. You've got different odds in front of you. The other guy I'd take a flyer on would be Lorenzo Musetti, another Italian who's had a great clay court season, got one of the most beautiful one-handed backhands, played well at Wimbledon last year. He loves the dirt. He loves the clay. He's a guy I think that could make a run. But here's the thing. It's hard for me to sit here and say that any of these players outside the big two, and we had the big three for 15, 20 years with Djokovic, Nadal, and Federer. Now it's looking like it could be the big two. You know, these two guys have won the last 5 majors in men's tennis. Other young players have been winning some of the other Masters events, like Jack Draper, the Englishman, like Jakub Mensik from the Czech Republic, who won at Miami. But to win a major, that seems it's like that is what we would call a long shot. The other guy I might consider taking a flyer on is João Fonseca. Many of your fans may not know him yet. He's only 18, just turned 18 recently. He's from Brazil, and I think he's a guy that could be the next great player along with those two. Massive firepower off both wings, big guy, phenomenal athlete, got feel around the net. I love his game. Whether he comes out and just, captures the tennis world by storm in Paris, unlikely, but he's a guy that can catch fire, and I believe in the next 2 years he will have won a major or two.
Fonseca 40-1 at our show sponsor, BetMGM. You bet on this Wednesday. We're joined by Patrick McEnroe. He'll be doing an awesome job covering Roland-Garros for our friends over at Turner, doing a red zone style show, which again, if you're betting this tournament, which we will be doing, that is going to be absolutely must watch. We absolutely cannot wait for it. And Patrick, just listening to your breakdown as someone who looks at this through the betting prism, right? You called it a big two. You're right about that, right? With Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner. Alcaraz is plus 125. Sinner is plus 180. If it's a true big two, then kind of like the bettor in me wants to say, I want the better price. I want to bet Jannik Sinner as opposed to Carlos Alcaraz. This does not have to be Patrick McEnroe's best bet. That's not the question. This is not a gotcha question. Do you agree, though, with that train of thought where if these guys are both absolute studs and they're 1 and 2, interchangeable maybe, Sinner's a little better on hard court, Alcaraz maybe slightly better on clay, do you agree with that philosophy? Take the better price with Sinner as opposed to the worst price with Alcaraz?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty heady move because Alcaraz, he can be a little up and down. I'd say he's probably slightly more susceptible to getting upset early, although on clay I think it's more unlikely. But we've seen him get picked off as he did at the U.S. Open last year and at the Australian Open. So Sinner is more reliable day in, day out, which is why, by the way, he's number 1 in the world. And they did play just this past week in the final in Rome. And remember, this was Sinner's first tournament since he got the 3-month suspension. So for him to make it all the way to the final was a heck of an effort. I think he'd be very happy with that. It was a very, very tight first set that Sinner easily could have won in the tiebreak. Once he lost that, he sort of lost his way, and Alcaraz won the second. But these two guys have separated themselves. And if you give someone, head-to-head, they're playing like a 4 or 5 set battle, you might lean Sinner in that situation just because he's a little bit more methodical. He's a little bit more predictable. Alcaraz is a better shot maker, and that's why people love to watch him. And clay gives him a little bit more time so that he can, throw some unforced errors in there and maybe get away with it. So that's not a bad call. The other guy, actually, I don't mind when I look at the odds is Zverev, because even though he hasn't had a great clay court season, he did play the final in Australia. He was in the final last year and had a break lead against Alcaraz early in the 5th set in the final of Roland-Garros. And he's a guy that is very comfortable on that surface. So if he can, to me, he's just lacking a little bit of confidence, and Sinner steamrolled him in the Aussie Open final, and I think that set him back mentally. But if he can get some momentum going, he's the guy that has the game. He has the game that can compete with Sinner and Alcaraz even when they're playing well on clay. Very few other players can say that.
Patrick, we have about a minute here for this answer. You gave us awesome stuff on the men's side, and I love the breakdown of Sinner and Alcaraz at the top. As it concerns the women's bracket, Swiatek and Sabalenka, the co-favorites, both at plus 225. Coco Gauff, plus 500. When you handicap the women's side, what do you like there with the odds I gave you in about 60 seconds, the women's side at Roland-Garros?
Well, the reason Coco is a distant third is because of her serve. Her serve can still break down under pressure. That's happened a few times in big matches, even in the past couple of weeks. But I like her overall athleticism. I think she's worth a flyer. The other person I think who's worth a serious flyer is Jasmine Paolini, the Italian. She made the finals last year. She just won in Rome, beating Coco Gauff in the final. She's a spark plug. She's going to have the crowd behind her because just of her personality and her presence. I've got her at plus 1,400. I don't know what you guys have her on your sheet. Paolini from Italy. Where do you have her on your list?
We have her at 12 at BetMGM.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a pretty good call there. The other one I would maybe, if you want to take a long flyer, would be Badosa. Paula Badosa from Spain at plus. I have her plus 5,000. This is on my sheet here, so she's a long shot. But I still like Swiatek, even though she struggled this year. She's by far been the best clay court player in the last 4 or 5 years. She's won 4 of her 5 majors on the red clay of Roland-Garros. Now she struggled this year, very unlike her, especially on clay. But I would still give her the slight edge over Sabalenka to win it.
Patrick, you're great. Go Knicks.